All right. Just been messing with Sekka Hinoki today. I was at the Atlanta Bonsai Society show this past weekend vending. Great experience. A lot of good people, some fun trees. One of the things I liked about their setup is they had a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level selection, and they did awards for each of those as well. Um, Great opportunity to kind of get your stuff seen and get a little boost of confidence as you move forward in the art, um, and just get familiar with what it's like to show pieces, right? And showcase your work and kind of get you comfortable with putting it out there, see how it goes. While I was there, I went and sold about uh, a dozen or so Sekka Hinokis. Some potted up, some in 1 gallons, nothing this big with the 3 gallons, but solid material. And everyone that got one was like, I had one before, or, and it didn't make it, or I've always heard they're terribly difficult. What do I do to keep them alive? All right. So, that being said, they can be picky, but they shouldn't be tough to keep alive. But there are a few clues and tricks of the trade as far as how to approach Sekka Hinoki Cypress. One of those being, you cannot manhandle the foliage. So guy wires will be your best friend, and you must be prudent in, if you are going to apply wires, they are flexible just like any other Hinoki, but if you're going to apply wire, you have to be delicate with the foliage. So whether that means, and that's not just application of the wire, but actually getting into where you apply the wire, which leads us to the second one. If you can see here, all right, let me move you in. This branch is long and leggy with no foliage. This one's got next to it a little dieback there, right? So that's what happens on these Sekkas, is if they don't get light and air circulation, that foliage is going to die back. But if they do, they'll stay green all the way out, right? If this had the right amount of light in here, it'd be green from base all the way out. So that being said, begin your branch selection early on Sekkas. It's a great way to allow them to grow in the way you want them to grow and prevent dieback, which leads into the design, right? As soon as you clip a Sekka, right, let's say we take it off right here, it's not going to bifurcate, right, from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, right? It's just going to kind of clump and form a nice pad. So it's really great in pad formation, but what about trying to develop a thicker branch, right? Or movement in the branch. So what you do is, if you've done your proper branch selection and it's got green all the way back, right, because it's allowing air and light into the interior, then you're going to be able to let that branch grow as you like and then cut it back somewhere, right? Then cut it back and allow it to develop that pad right where you want it. So those are 3 of kind of the quick tips and tricks as far as that goes. But when you have something like this, how do you design it to make it, I always forget their own turntables. How do you do a redesign to make sure that it's something useful? Some of that may be restricted in how the tree looks already. They're not going to back bud like, you know, definitely like maples. They can back bud better than standard Hinoki, but again, it's still a Hinoki, so it's not going to just magically turn into this perfectly shaped tree. They look good with some deadwood on them and some gin, but it's tough to redevelop something that's so long and leggy. So we'll get into this mess of a tree and see if we can start to compact it a little bit and pare back this madness. The worst thing that happens is we allow air and light flow into the center of the tree, leaving good strategic branches, and then kind of let the tree, if we're doing that, trying to promote back buds, we don't want to take off these tall tips. We want to let it grow, and the more nutrients that flow through the tree, the more likely you are to get back budding somewhere in there. So we'll be strategic about it, and we won't just start from the outside in, we'll start from the inside out with our branch selection. Right, we could wire that out, but we'll let it do its thing for now. If y'all have any questions in the chat or anything, just let me know. Seka is a unique species to work with, often shrouded in mystery. And people will tell you can only prune them in April or May or this or that. I've pruned mine all winter long, haven't had any issues. No issues. Of course, protected in the cold frame. But this is a great time for styling, pruning, rewiring, reworking. I luckily finished up my repotting for the season last week, which is always a celebration. My hands can get re-moisturized and not be dried out so much. So repotting season and coincides with selective collecting. Right. I usually judge it by kids' spring break. Right? Spring break's going on. It's prime time. If you can protect stuff, you can start a little earlier. If you're in a more northerly climate than I am here in North Mississippi, you can go a little later. But what you're looking for is that bud elongation right before the buds unfurl. That's prime time. All the energy's starting to move, and the tree will reallocate those resources to recover its roots as it buds out. It'll be great. Maples usually start first, at least trident maples. And then you have things like hornbeam and beech are going to come in last. You can always do, as far as deciduous goes, you can always do conifers a little later into the season. So if you plan it out just right, you'll be able to work through everything without it being a complete madhouse rush. I was getting ready for 3 different shows, so I had about 80 some odd repots that I was working on. Only about less than a third of those were mine. But nice enough, there's a lot of beech and hornbeam around here that I like to collect. So I was able to still go collecting this past week. It was really, really nice to get out and do that. Because again, they're waking up a little later than some other things. I gotta get these scissors. Let's see what I've got. So again, with an effort to promote back budding, I'm not taking off the tips of things. I'm looking in the interior to see which major branches need to go. What if they don't get a lot of water? Yeah, with anything, if they're not getting the water that they need, Hinokis are not going to respond really well. Hinoki cypress are a water-loving plant. They move, especially for conifers, they're moving a lot of water through their vascular system. And so they like, and there's a lot of people in their soil mixtures that will put like a 2 or 3 to 1 Akadama pumice lava rock ratio. So a lot more organic matter or into the mix as far as that goes. These kind of are the same plane, but this one is all leggy, and we've got this right above it, so I say we take this one off and let this one develop. I'm being too forward, because I think maybe we can leave that. Maybe we'll leave them both for now, because they're not exactly on the same plane. And if that produces some back budding, maybe. If not, we can always take it off later. There's a nice branch back here that's going to thrive. Been kind of a crazy day for me. I was just finished unloading a whole truckload of composted manure, and I had like 2 wheelbarrows full left, and so I was a little tardy getting on here, and there were some technical difficulties, but I'm like sitting down with the tree, I'm kind of getting in the zone. So if I don't respond to anything or don't explain stuff, just let me know. But for right now, I'm looking to remove anything that's going to cause inverse taper, right? So it's nice thickness on the trunk. As it goes up, if these are directly opposite, there's going to be swelling here, and then it's going to get narrow again before it branches out. So we want to make sure to avoid that. So we're going to move any places where there's 3 or more branches. We're going to take at least 1 or more of those off, because we don't want a big wad of bark development and inverse taper going on. So those could be used. And I've got a handful of these, and what I'm looking to do is not necessarily style out the whole thing, but just get it prepped for someone else to come in and say, oh, that's what I've got to work with. I like that branching, I like that structure, I like that tree. I want to go home, take that home and style it. That's the goal with these here, at least today. is a large cut here, so just put on a little wound sealant. Essentially liquid Band-Aid for the trees. Help them heal up. So again, all this branch selection is trying to make sure there's room for light to penetrate the canopy. Because any of that interior foliage that is alive, we want to keep thriving. Find that main trunk, front of the tree. Actually, I want to take that off. There we go. And you can see how it's starting to open up a little bit. I'll give you a closer view here. Whoops. All right, there's a little more air in there as opposed to how it started. So and as we move up into the tree, we want to make sure we're not removing all the thin branches, but we're removing thicker portions of those branches with reduction cuts. Take out that top heavy canopy. That'll really open up a lot of the space in here for these other branches to develop. Let's see if we start laying stuff down. Can really get good branch placement with some of these. Take that off the top. Since that branch is kind of where we want it to be, we don't necessarily need back budding. I'm okay taking off some of that extra foliage to help the light situation on the interior. Always trying to get that moss off there. This is a major issue. You know what? there's good taper there. Let's take off that whole chunk. Now we'll be able to develop this branch. So I know there's a lot of stuff flying off. I'm being more gentle than it may appear. That's just dead slough off. So we'll see how that works. There we go. All this, see, with this much exposed on the interior, I really don't like that. On the interior, it'd be totally fine to come in here and wire that out. But if you had dense foliage all throughout, you wouldn't want to be wiring over and smushing all of this. So you would more or less get what you wanted, pull it down with a guy wire, and move through that way. Notice I'm switching to the scissors for the interior so I don't have too much disturbance. That we'll want to keep all that on there because maybe we want a thicker branch to develop there. So I'll show you from the top what it looks like so you can see the distinction of the foliage. Much better canopy. You can see all the way through there. There's no spot in this tree, even directly underneath, it's not going to be able to get the light that it needs. So, a major boon to this tree here and its development. Trying to take it to the next level before it gets out of hand and just turns into this leggy mess. So right now it's kind of just like, you know, flying V kind of thing. But style wise, which again, not really working on right now, just because of time crunch. I mean, I've got a bunch of other things to do and figure let somebody else that's really excited about it get it manageable, right? Get it to this point, and then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I think I can see a tree in there," and then they can wire it out and style it themselves. So yeah, but I mean, I see this leaving and just let this go and develop. But even without this, if you keep this side, pull that down, just pull everything down, spread it out, and then slowly get it more condensed at the top, compact. The tree would be great about that height, maybe a little taller, but you can see how it's just gonna fan out. Fill up that space, wire some stuff, just make one level after another, all the way up. The other side would be similar, but not exactly the same, right? One more spot I want to get rid of here. All right, but that's that as far as this one goes. I've got a handful more I'm going to keep working on. So it'd be great to have y'all stick around, but let me see what I've got next, because every tree is different. Every tree is different. It's fun. You can't see it as well when it's in the pot. Give me 1 second. There we go. See if we can get it raised up a little bit. Hang with me for 1 second. Oh, that's better. Okay. Always do a little weeding. This one's got a much more interesting base. You can see, nice flare. Moves to the left, then back over to the right. Start with these little things, these stragglers. So again, as you're cleaning out trees, again, depending on the style, but generally speaking, you want to start in your removal by lower on the tree, removing thinner branches, and as you move up, starting to remove thicker and thicker branches, so that you have thick branches down low, thinner branches up top. Is going to help with that appearance of scale. And this is something that I have no problem doing, and then repotting this tree. Ooh, this side, the front. I like this better as the front. It really accentuates the movement, right? Try and get it just right, and yep. There we go. It's got that extra bit. Partly because this root, but then it comes up and it bends back this way and then goes that direction. So let's see. Yeah. Let's get rid of that. So always check the 180, the reverse side of what you think is a good trunk, because it may reveal something a little more interesting. And you'll see this, but it's got a nice bend even up high. So we'll work our way up there. This may end up being the front, but just keep that in mind. Kind of get a tentative idea of where you want the front to be, what could be a good front, and why. And then as you clean it out, just keep paying attention to how things change and how the tree looks. Because you'd hate to take away a branch that could really set something up for a front and limit yourself down the road by removing something that, if that were the front, it would be necessary, but if it weren't the front, you could take off. So, sorry, there's a big thick weed in there. Get rid of that thing. So again, this is tree number 2. I'm working on Sekas tonight. So if you have any questions, just throw it in there. I don't want to just keep repeating myself, but sometimes bonsai gets that way. Prune back, repeat. Chopstick in the soil, repeat. But every tree you sit down with, it's going to be a different feel to it, which is kind of why I'm really drawn to it. Is you can get comfortable knowing how to do something, but you're never doing the same thing twice as far as design goes. I'm not sure if y'all can hear that. It's really windy, so the garage door is groaning. It's somewhat distracting, but if you can hear it, that's just a PSA. If you can't, no need to worry. I think we're going to take all of this off, but we'll see. Even if that's the front, it can go. So we'll remove that. If it ends up being the back and we need some foliage here, and this comes down, we can always wire some over, right? So always a consideration. Where could you put things? Where do they need to go? Yeah. If your home in your greenhouse doesn't blow away, some tie downs may be in order. But it's wild windy down here. We just dealt with a handful of tornadoes in the area, which is devastating. We hope everybody's doing all right, recovering well. So right here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches all emanating from the same spot. What you want to do to accentuate that turn is you don't want something right on the edge, you want something just above the edge that can be pulled down. So we're going to take this one out. Right. The one that's right on the curve, so that when we wire it, we can pull something down. Pull something down so that accentuates that curve right there. Rather than being right on the curve and sticking straight out, we come just above the curve and wire down. Bring that branch down, and then it shows off that movement rather than just, sticking straight out perpendicular with that movement. Subtle nuances, but major distinction in your design and your branch selection. I'm going to take this one off too. It's just long and leggy. Doesn't really contribute to the design. That one, let's see what we can do. And so since there were so many branches there, we're going to take this one off too. That was a big cut. So I'm going to make sure to get cut paste on there. A few of those are large cuts. And this one, you're already starting to see how much light can get into this canopy through into these lower branches through the canopy. Part of that is this tree's got a lot more movement than the previous one. So we can be a little more prudent with our branch removal, because we don't have so much concern about light getting in because it's got that movement. The branches can benefit from that as long as we keep the branch placement from overlapping. We'll be able to benefit from the movement in the tree, keeping the foliage more evenly distributed. Scissors are on the, where'd they go? There. I really like this lower type foliage here, so we're going to start pruning these back to keep this developing lower on the tree. Actually, I'm going to go all the way back. All right. Maybe we'll keep these. One good solid branch, so we'll get rid of the little stuff around it. There we go. Always paying attention to where the layers will develop for your foliar pads. This branch is in an interesting spot. Kind of making a whirl. And it's only got that on it, so no big deal. this off. Keep it moving in this direction, right? Which means we can thin this out. Maintaining that directionality, pulling these branches on this side to keep it flowing this way. Maybe we'll take some of this back, but we don't need to be too wild with it. As long as we can keep that from dying back in there. All right, just mean those longer fronds on the top, get rid of those. Make sure you can get that air and light circulation. The importance of air circulation through the branches helps prevent bacteria and disease from spreading, which with something with such a dense canopy, it's definitely a major issue. There we go. It's nice. It's a really thick branch that kind of kept its thickness all the way through, really no taper. So coming out the top and all the way from down in here, sticking just straight up through the middle. So if you have a branch like that with no taper on it, then it's really no good. It's kind of the same thing. It looks like it's been pruned back before, and so it just kind of bushed out. But it was so thick in there that it really wasn't doing anything for us. I've got a choice between one, two, three. I'm going to take the thicker of the three. Maybe not all the way off. Maybe there's somewhere I can cut back to. So we're going to start on the outside and see. But it looks like there's great canopy development, so we're going to take that thicker one off and allow these thinner ones, right, to help with that scale. We've got so much foliage up there. We're just fine. Last main area is right here. We're going to see. We don't need that whole thing gone, and it bifurcates back pretty well. So let's take that off. Take that lower. And this one will go as well. There you go. So now we've removed all the potential problem areas, right? The structural issues. There's going to be no inverse taper developing. And we can go through now and say, well, now that the structural issues are gone, are there any purely aesthetic, right? Even though nothing in bonsai is purely aesthetic, it should always have a function and aesthetic, but more aesthetic than functional. How's that? Ah. A little bit different, right? A little bit different. You can see how it wouldn't take much to just pull some of that foliage down. Maybe keep this up, or we keep this side up. We pull this side way down. Right, they're very flexible. And you see again right here, keeping the branches that are above the curve really accentuates that curve right here. Style this direction. This one could even come off a little bit farther. Watch this. Boom. Really separates those pads now. And you could even separate it more. If you want a more dense tree, you pull all those pads down. Or if you want it sparse, you pull one way down here. You have one move towards the back. Keep that negative space between those pads. This is a nice tree. Turned out really well. This one, take it or leave it, but since it's not detrimental, we're going to leave it, right? If you don't have to get rid of it at this point, don't. Leave that for, I'm going to leave it for the next person to decide. Maybe that tree, that branch comes in handy for some background, something like that, right? But it's not overshadowing anything that we really need to get light to. If it were a problem branch, we'd get rid of it. Aesthetically, maybe. I mean, it comes out right from the middle, but it's the middle of the straight portion. So maybe it adds just enough in interest. If you really want to get wild, you could take this whole thing off. This would be the new apex. You pull everything down. And of course it would need some development, but again, that's not for me to decide. Which is kind of the nice thing about working on trees like this, is I don't have to do every little decision. Now if this were a client tree and they said, style it for me, no problem, right? But something like this, I just want to give people the opportunity to say, ooh, that's interesting, I like that, I can see a tree in there. So I'm going to put a few more bits of cut paste on here. And check the time, because I'd love to get another one at least done of these. And since every tree presents different opportunities, we may run into something that gives us some more interest. Let's see, pardon my finger. 10 o'clock. We've been about really close to an hour, 45 minutes or so. This other one over here. Oh, there we go. Let me grab one more. This one looks fun. Oh. So part of why I'm putting y'all through this weeding is when I sit with a tree and I'm doing this weeding, I'm not really looking at the weeds. I'm looking at the tree. You can see some of the dieback in here, right? I'm looking at the tree as I go around and thinking about how I want to start. So every time I sit down with a tree, it's just a little bit of courtship, if you will. A lot of my classes, I relate different portions of bonsai to different parts of relationships, right? You got to get to know the tree before you can start doing major stuff. So weeding is one of those where you can just turn it around, look at it, figure out where things are going to be. So this tree is really interesting. Let's move in. You can see all these branches emanate from the same spot on the tree, which gives us interesting opportunities. We're going to approach it the same as previously, right? Just slow and steady, cleaning it out. Nothing crazy, get rid of the dead areas. That one, I'm thinking, can't jump the gun though. Right, it's a low branch. Oh, that's twisted, that one's already broken. With that being said, we are just going to take it. I was going to say it's a low branch that's got good foliage on it still, but with pretty decent foliage still on it, so I was going to keep it, but most of them were snapped, which is, I think, related to why that one branch was dead. Now, I'm half tempted to remove this huge chunk because there's really nothing on it till you get way up high. And from this side, you could get a really interesting trunk with, it'd be rather extreme taper. So maybe I'm not that insane quite just yet. But if you have an opinion, feel free to let me know. There are a lot of branches on this thing. A lot of good branches. By that I mean they've got some good shape. They've got good foliage on the interior of the branch, which means it's really nice to work with. So we're going to go through and get rid of the long leggy pieces. Found it. Ooh, there we go. That'll help with some foliar separation there. There's a good example. Branch that had enough light, and so the whole thing stayed green. Really is Fantastic tree to work with now. So we want to keep something like that to help it develop, gain thickness. Do we have to keep all of them? Not necessarily. But we do want to keep in mind that there is a big advantage down here on this lower branch. We want to make sure we select and keep an eye on that branch getting as much light as it can to maintain its vigor. Well, I knew this one would be interesting. Didn't necessarily know how interesting. I think we're taking this whole thing off right here. There we go. Got some good branches, but I think, unfortunately, they're all emanating from the same spot. I'm going to take this one, the lower of the two, because it was sitting right on top of this short foliage. So I took the lower of the two to try and preserve. We're going to take this whole thing. Try and preserve this low foliage, maybe create another pad. Also, this, the above branch had quite a bit better bifurcation and shape to it rather than just being a branch that stuck out with foliage on it. It's got bifurcation of one. So it goes from one here and here splits to two and to four. Right, we can make some of these reduction cuts because we know that we're going to want a pad right around there. And we can swing around this way. We can even leave this on here. It's not really interrupting anything. But maybe if we're going to bring more foliage from here down, we don't want everything sitting in the same spot. So we'll have to look at that as we move along. So I'm really looking at this side as the front. I'm trying to incorporate somewhere over here, right? Trying to incorporate. There we go. This branch here. Maybe it goes. Maybe it goes. Because we have branches in the back, that can be our background. This wouldn't be at that funky nub. There we go. Now you can see a tree, right? This is going to lay down. This is going to lay down. These can be reduced. So we'll be able to develop pads there. So this was one big clump of whorls, but now we've made a tree out of it. Yes, more of that can go, but again, I have to right now. Let the tree regain vigor. There's still a couple years worth of room left in these roots in this pot. These are weed roots, so just helping out where I can. And now we can see we'll have pad development here, right? We'll bring all this down. Movement here. We'll have a pad placed down here. We have counter branches here. There we go. See, we're just moving up the tree as we go. Selecting those vertical shoots where we want a pad to move horizontally, we select and remove those vertical portions so that when we pull these down, they don't run into anything, and that naturally grows the direction that we like. And it gives us room in the next stage up, that next level of pad development, while removing the foliage that will block the light, that will kill off the interior branches. So you can see there's a rhyme and a reason for everything, and if you just take the right steps. All you have to do is take the right steps, and it'll build itself as you move along. Makes it sound like it's a lot easier than it is. On some level it is. But on another level it's, well, what are the right steps? Oh, yeah. Fair enough. Solid question. That branch. And these branches that I'm taking off here aren't necessarily bad branches, but they're sitting right on top of branches that we know we're going to want to use for pad development. So we've got foliage, if we've got branches that are photosynthetically redundant, right? They're going to be sitting right on top of each other. That's no good, right? So we're always looking to remove photosynthetic redundancy in our design. It's because it doesn't look good, right? Function and aesthetic. Function and aesthetic. Still looking to remove that vertical growth coming off some of these pads. to get things that lay out nicely. So now we're getting to the point where we have to think about, right? Remember where the front is. Where do we want our apex to be? We can already see that it's thinned out nicely from here to about here. Maybe I need to stand up and actually look at this thing. Interestingly, there's a lot of dead branches up here. Oh, sorry, there are chairs. So, clean these areas out. I'm trying not to just go through and snip every little thing, but I'm trying to clean it out enough to notice, is there a major branch that I can remove instead of clipping every little thing. All right. I think we're getting rid of this guy right here. There we go. You didn't even notice, did you? It's always funny when you're sitting in a demo or a class, someone's like, you can't take that branch, I need that branch. And then you prune it out and you pull it out and you look at it and you're like, that didn't change anything. The tree looks the same. It's like, yeah, there's a ton of foliage in these things. There's a ton going on. But in a classroom full of people that are like, can't do that. It's like, well, you have to. Or else it's just growing a plant. It's not bonsai. We want this thing to look old. Get rid of this big gnarled hunk. You have to be really careful once you get to the apex. You don't want to leave a bare hole in the middle. You still want it to be tree-ish. So with that in mind, you can't just go in guns blazing, hacking away at stuff. As I say that, you see me removing these huge branches, but I'm pruning one branch instead of 6 little ones, right? Maybe this one goes. Let me see where the front is. Remind myself. So we don't want to do anything insane, like take the main trunk out. This one will be okay. This one will be okay. Just slow and steady. This one, very nice. That should just about do it. Especially as we move into spring. Making sure we get light down into the center. Get rid of those thick, full branches that are going to take up all the energy, block all the sunlight. Really want to make sure we're clearing up these areas. Getting rid of any last vestiges of dead foliage up here. Take one last run around here. Let's see what we've got. So you can kind of see, even though they're left long, see how we pull a pad down here. Right. Some backdrop here. There's quite a bit left on there, but it's not dying out in the middle. There's nothing detrimental. I'm going to leave that because it really depends on how this is styled as to what you'll need here. Here, I'll get rid of that one. That'll help it fit better. Dead end there. Okay. Right? So depending on whether you need more back on the other side or you want a fuller pad on this side. So that being said, I don't want to take too much off and pre-indicate which direction that should go, since it's not going to be my tree in the end. Good negative space throughout for sunlight and air to get down to every branch. Help promote potentially back budding, but if not, it'll at least keep around the foliage that exists so that we can thrive and have more options in the future as we develop the canopy. There we go. A couple little funky bits in there, but nothing crazy. All right, nice shorter pad here, which will look really nice as a counterbalance. Just a little understory. There we go. Clear that up. Good. That's it. Right, a little counter pad here. This guy's nice. Again, it could be one big pad or separate them into 2 pads if you want a lighter, more feminine design feel. Get some pad development there, and everything else subsequently gets pulled down as you make your way up to the apex. It's a great little tree. Fun to work on. A little bit more of a puzzle compared to the other two. But as you work your way up, really turns out nice. So I think we're right about an hour or so. Yeah, not bad. Thanks for joining in. This time we'll do a little once more around. You can see how much light can get in through that canopy now as opposed to before, which is really the goal we're looking for. Light up every branch. It'll look great. All right. This will be a great reference for anytime you're working on Sekka Hinoki, so I hope you refer back to it. And for now, that's it. Bonsai on, y'all.